Hey friends, welcome back to the No Wrong Turns podcast with Audrey Hunter. I'm Audrey and I'm your host, and I'm so happy that you're here. If you like what you're listening to today, make sure that you subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. Every other Tuesday, we have an awesome guest that comes on and chats about their story and their passions and how their passions have evolved and grown throughout their story. Subscribe today to the No Wrong Turns pod with Audrey Hunter in your podcast player so you guys will never miss an episode. Hey friends, happy Tuesday. How are you all doing? This week is a big celebration week for my family, so I wanted to give a few birthday shout outs. The first one is to my little brother John, who turned 29 the week that this podcast comes out. Happy birthday, John. And the second one is a big happy birthday to my little cousin Olivia, who we just got to celebrate this past weekend with a little double ear piercing at good old Claire's, some ice skating. So I just wanted to give a big happy birthday shout out to both John and Olivia. Happy birthday. Friends, if you are interested in being in a small group setting for some listening, discussion, and action work with the main focus being on racial injustice and racial reconciliation, I would invite you to consider joining my book club. Our March book selection is Anti-Racist Ally, an Introduction to Activism and Action by Sophie Williams. If you are interested in joining the conversation, our next book club meeting will be on Tuesday, March 16th at 7:30 p.m. Chicago time. DM us on our social medias at No Wrong Turns Pod or email us at nowrongturnspod@gmail.com for more details. Listeners, welcome to our 33rd episode. Today on the podcast, we have a musical trio of sisters, Brittany, Miriah, and Sierra. These ladies share their passion for creating music together through their band Harmony Roads. These sisters will share how they have always been dabbling in music and how it has become a more formal passion, along with how their lives have changed and different seasons have come and allow them to pause and pursue other passions. This is the first time that we've had a trio come on and share their story and their passions on the podcast. So because of this, we'll be splitting this episode up into a two-parter. This week, we'll hear the first half of their story on how the sisters grew up and on how their collective passion of music grew together and what life looked for them growing up and developing their passions as individuals. Then next week, we'll hear episode 34, which will be the part 2 for this interview. And you will hear about what the collective passion for music and what their band looks like for them as adults today, as well as diving into some lessons and areas of things that they have learned from. You are for sure going to want to lean in and not miss hearing Brittany, Miriah, and Sierra's story as they highlight their passions of being musicians, having a family ministry, and becoming authors and podcasters. No matter if this is your story and you can relate to them or not, I believe that there is something in this episode for you. All right, here is my conversation with Brittany, Miriah, and Sierra of Harmony Roads. Welcome to the No Wrong Turns podcast. Today on the podcast is our first trio of people. I skipped over just having two, and we have three guests. They are sisters, and I'll let them introduce themselves to you all.
Hi, we're Harmony Roads, three sisters, Brittany, which is my older sister, Miriah, myself, I'm the middle, and Sierra Turner, she's the youngest. And thank you so much for having us.
Yeah, thanks for being on the podcast. Can you tell the podcast listeners like a little bit about yourselves, maybe where you guys are from, any fun facts that you want to share with us so we can get to know you a little bit?
Absolutely. So originally we are from the Eastern Shore of Maryland, so East Coast. Right now we are in Texas. Big change. And
wow.
there's a lot that had gone into that, and we'll get into that. But so we originated East Coast, and what Harmony Roads is, we're a music ministry. You can find a book, we're published, we have a podcast, pretty much all kinds of artistic creative catalog. That's us. But there's been a lot of changes along the way before we got to where we are now.
We've been together for over 15 years as a band.
But forever as
a
sisters.
family.
Everyone's like, when did you start singing? And we're like, well, when we were walking.
So there's a lot of life changes that have happened through each of our lives and within our passion of music. And this passion is summed up in our family ministry, which is Harmony Roads.
Awesome. Well, that's a big change, like locations and all of that. So I'm excited to hear more about your story. So you guys grew up you said in Maryland.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And can you tell us a little bit about what life was like growing up for all three of you?
Yeah, so we pretty much say we're from Maryland because we moved there in 2000. So that would have been when I was 10, Brittany was 12, Sierra was 8, no, 6.
Yeah. Well,
And
2000 is, I was 5.
Yeah.
You were.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So, but we always touch back to Maryland being home because I feel like that's where a lot of our memories are. When we first moved to Maryland, we lived on a houseboat.
Wow.
And
On an island.
And it's very interesting. Whenever we would tell people we're from an island, they're like, "Oh, it's
How
a tropical." No, we're talking mid-Atlantic.
Yeah.
It's very cold. And
So I gotta ask, how did you guys end up living on an island? Like, what did your parents do for?
yeah, so it was. How big was our island?
16 miles.
I thought it was
16 miles.
16 miles.
Okay, so when you are driving in Maryland, and one of the big iconic features is the Chesapeake Bay Bridge.
Okay.
On the western side is the Annapolis area and
Naval
also the Naval Academy. As soon as you get off the Bay Bridge heading eastbound is Kent Island, Kent Island. And you're on it for maybe 5 minutes, and then you cross the Narrows, and then you're on the eastern shore of Maryland. It's that fast. It's a blink. It's a little piece of land, but it's an island nonetheless. So we tell people we're from an island and they think tropical, beachy. It's like, no, it's just this little blink of land within the Chesapeake Bay. And yeah,
but
so
it was a safe, small town.
Yes, lots of
and
farmland.
My dad, our dad worked for American Airlines. He worked at BWI. So
which is Baltimore.
Yes. So it was just a safe place outside of the city that he could, raise us. And his family was from Maryland as well. So
they were all on the Western Shore. He just wanted something more quiet for his kids. He grew up Western Shore. He knew the area. He knew Baltimore, and he worked at the airport there. And he was like, I'll commit to commuting 40 minutes to an hour every day just so my kids can be in a quiet life. And that's what we did. So we grew up in Maryland on the Eastern Shores is what it was called, within the Chesapeake Bay. It's Kent Island. And the houseboat just happened to be our starting place because before we moved to Maryland, we were in Arizona, which, again, a drastic difference. And it just so happened that we had a family boat from our grandfather in Wisconsin that he passed down to us, and we had it on a lake in Arizona, and it was a houseboat. And so when we moved to moved to Maryland, we took the houseboat with us, and that was our landing base. It was the first place, our first home that we had, but while we were learning the area, we didn't know where we were going to live. We didn't know where to rent, where to buy, and so we just found a slot in a little marina and called it home, and we spent
6 months.
Hour tour.
We spent a winter there.
Small Christmas tree.
Yeah.
So
wow.
And we were all in the same room. It was so cute.
I think what you will find, any of your listeners or yourself, as you get to know our family, we're a very unique bunch.
We like sitting on the same couch.
We operate fine and we operate well in close quarters. We get along, and it's very odd because I feel like some families or most families, that people like their space, understandably. I get it. People lead different lives, but we all like to do life together. And yeah, we have our individual families and we have our individual likes, dislikes, but ultimately when we come together, we still function really well. We have moments, but we function very well and we like to get along. And so we started off in a houseboat in Maryland in 2000, spent a very cold Christmas on that houseboat. And then we got a little farmhouse in Chester, Maryland.
You didn't emphasize the cold because we
It
had
was
to
cold.
take
I
a shower. We had to take a
the
shower
hospital once.
in the shower house. Do you guys remember?
Yes, the showers that were adjacent to the pool.
Which was the marina.
Wow.
Yeah, it was a nice marina. And so they had like a shower house, which was really nice.
We would run up there in the snow and shower and then run back to our house.
It's cold.
It was so fun.
Today's episode is brought to you by Kind Bar. Kind is deeply committing to crafting food with real, recognizable ingredients, a disruptive notion that sparked the creation of a new healthy snacking category. Kind is unapologetic in their efforts to challenge the status quo to shift the food industry and empower their community and our listeners to make better informed health choices. Kindness can be a transformative force for good, and that is why we are teaming up with Kind and Podgo to bring our listeners 10% or 15% off if you're military, teachers, students, first responders, doctors, or nurses. Two of my favorite Kind bars are the peanut butter dark chocolate and the dark chocolate nuts and sea salt. I just love the dark chocolate. So you can go to podgo.co/kind. That's podgo.co/KIND. Kind Bar, creating a kinder, healthier world, one act and one snack at a time. All right, back to Harmony Road's story.
So, but yes, then we got a farmhouse and we had our neighbor who had goats and chickens. And we lived in this little teeny farmhouse. Brittany's
Still on the same island.
Yes,
Yes,
Brittany,
it was.
Sierra, and I shared a purple room with a Flintstones fan.
It was.
I don't
And
even remember that.
yeah, I remember. And we had an acre. And so we kind of grew up feeling very rural and quiet. And yeah,
And then we moved into the suburbs eventually, and
not even really suburbs.
Well,
Still
it's the
very
suburbs
quiet.
of
I'll
Still
tell
Maryland.
you,
but small town. I mean, yeah, small island, small town. If
And
you
I'll-
don't know what you're doing, somebody else does.
I'll tell you, yeah, right, small town. And our world got extremely, we moved there in 2000, and we got into that house in 2001. And I'll tell you, when our world got very big in Maryland was when 9/11 hit.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when we kind of discovered that when we sang together,
Mhm.
a lot of the sad people all over the nation that were experiencing this very, very difficult time took a breath. And so we were like, my father worked for the airport, and so there was troops,
After
after
9/11, when you have the war on terror.
War on Terror and the recovery of the nation, troops were being sent out. And so my dad saw that the USO they were in need of some, entertainment, goodbyes, and these lighter sessions, just something to make it a little bit easier. And so we originally started with the USO.
We, as in Brittany and Miriah, because I was only 7.
She was 7.
I guess,
So,
yeah.
was this, you were going there to perform?
Yeah, so I think what Brittany is referencing is kind of our big first public event
Yes.
singing
Mhm.
was at Baltimore Washington Airport when there was several deployments happening and
In December.
in December, and the USO was specifically putting on an event for those families that were seeing loved ones being deployed and they're spending time in the terminal saying their goodbyes. And so there were several different performers on stage just to provide an atmosphere of cheer or
Mhm.
entertainment,
And
because
hope.
it was very a melancholy situation.
Yeah.
And so that was an opportunity that we had as sisters and ultimately as a group to really perform and just administer hope to people.
Mhm.
But before that, even in our little small town, rural farmland island, when Brittany was in middle school, we started to explore the idea of singing, performing, writing songs, what that looked like.
Mhm.
And so with that, there were very few local coffee shops that were around the area, or churches that were around the area that, would have entertainment come in, whether it was for like a youth event,
Coffee house.
Coffee
yeah,
house,
that's what I
yeah.
said, coffee shop. That's what I said.
Yeah.
And so that was really kind of our first touch base into, okay, let's stand up here and sing something.
Mm-hmm.
Karaoke tracks.
With karaoke tracks.
Outside of school recitals, because we were involved in
Choir
and violin, and I was struggling in second grade. I would not sit down and do my work, and my mom was like, all right, we need to get you diagnosed. And so I was diagnosed with ADHD, and she put me into orchestra. And so I learned the violin, and I realized that I was ADHD, also a synesthete. I have synesthesia. And so once I learned music, and once I learned what these notes were that I was hearing in my head all the time, my whole demeanor got a lot calmer. And so I had been doing music since first and second grade. And so Miriah, soon after, took up drums, and then Sierra was tasting this and that, and percussion, and as she got older, choir. She was really, really good at
harmony,
just making her voice an instrument. So she perfected that.
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome. So this was all just kind of as you were growing up, just with the opportunities that were kind of just different stuff that you were already a part of, and then also things that you were hearing about to have the chance to kind of like hone in and start like learning how to perform almost.
Yes. And Brittany and Miriah, I mean, like Brittany said, I kind of dabbled in many different instruments, but didn't really stick to one. It's not too late.
Yeah.
But Brittany is self-taught with the piano. Miriah is self-taught with drums. And so they started with that and their vocals. And, eventually when I was old enough, about when I was 12 years old is when I started singing more with them. Then we made our harmony a 3-part harmony.
And I think what brought us to the point of singing and being a musician and playing an instrument, we always talk about how growing up, mom and dad said, you have to choose an instrument and choose a sport.
Yeah, my dad's a jock.
And yes, dad is a jock. And so it's not even necessarily like, oh, we always thought that we would have this family band and write songs and do albums, but it was more so just part of our upbringing. You're going to be well-rounded.
Mm-hmm.
So choose an instrument, choose a sport. And so by making that choice, even though I would have chose, I think I tried to choose triangle. Like I really did not want to do anything. And then I tried to follow Brittany's lead, and I did violin, and I'm like, that's not happening either. But then just so by making these small choices, we figured out more so or less what we liked. And I ended up finding percussion, and I explored drums more. And so it was just more that guidance from our parents that put us on a path that helped us to explore that passion and opportunity.
Yeah, they really, they supported whatever we ended up liking more, they were going to support.
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome. I think that's really awesome that you guys had such encouraging parents to kind of push you and kind of give you some boundaries, but also just like give you the freedom to explore all of those possibilities as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
very
absolutely.
blessed.
Hey listeners, some of you may have heard a big part of my story on how and why I started this podcast. During my day job, I get to listen to podcasts all day long. The ones I really enjoy are the ones that encompass someone's story and their passions. Since I am an avid podcast listener, I wanted to start sharing podcasts and podcast episodes that I have really enjoyed and that I think you will enjoy as well. This week, I wanted to share with you a podcast called The Breakdown with Sean King. If you have been listening along in the past few weeks, you may recognize Sean King's name as the author of our last book club book, Make Change. In the Breakdown podcast, Sean unpacks the most important stories of injustice, racism, and corruption, but also tell you who's fighting and how you can support and join them with practical action steps. Episodes come out each weekday and are about 10 to 20 minutes in length. I will link the podcast details in our show notes for you all. All right, back to Harmony Road's story. Okay, so as you were kind of getting this I don't know, pattern or kind of musical foundation set, sounds like, in middle school. And what happened for you guys in when you were kind of in the high school years? I know you're kind of stair stepping years apart, but what happened for you all in high school years in terms of your passions and your story?
So we should probably start from oldest to youngest, because your high school is much different than my high school experience.
So my high school experience was, I was in theater and doing volleyball and, working on the band. We officially started doing more shows here and there in 2004, which was when I was a freshman in high school. And we started building up. We did, my senior year of high school was our first album. And that's when, my senior year, I was a senior in 2007. And I think we released in 2006 or 2007.
2007.
Okay, so 2007, I graduated high school. And that was when we released our first album, and things kind of took off then. And so that taking off affected her last 2 years, and then the rest of her life. And so we had been building, and so after that first album took off, we were originally, our name was Beyond the Veil. Mm-hmm. And so you can find those, we have a playlist on our Spotify that you can find that old Beyond the Veil album. And so when that album took off, we started doing, I think we rounded around 75 shows a year.
And
wow.
So what made this possible also was that the playing field was so huge, because we were on the East Coast. Everything is jam-packed in on the East Coast.
Delaware, Connecticut,
you can make it up to New York in one day, and then come back in the same day.
Mm-hmm.
And so there were so many different opportunities.
And then Dad also worked for the airlines, and so we were under his benefits. Mm-hmm. We were all still under his benefits, and so we were able to travel. We were gifted an RV from our grandmother, and they had just, they were like, we're not traveling anymore. And so we called it the band bus, and it was just our way of moving around. That happened in 2007.
The RV, we spent a lot of time in a really large,
I think it was 2008
suburban before the RV.
Yeah, so there were many vehicles, planes, trains,
we're fine with close quarters, as we said. But again, what also
that was my high school experience.
And touching back to what Brittany was saying, when things took off, what made, I guess, our product per se, our music, our ministry take off, was that all of our music it's all written by Brittany and my mom. It's all it's together. All original. And so it's something different, and we also didn't belong to any specific label or company, and so
we weren't even members of a church, really. We went and visited a whole bunch of different churches.
Because we really didn't have time to go to a single church. There were multiple churches that supported us and our endeavors, but
so there were no barriers. We would sing at any different church. We had several different churches that would invite us for their Sunday morning worship, and whatever denomination they were, and we praised God and Jesus, and it's really the core of it all. Mm-hmm. And so that was a huge opportunity.
And to go back to Mom and I, like in our writing process, we didn't fit in any label, or no one really, we didn't have anybody we didn't really have anybody telling us what to do, and so we kind of formulated our songs according to the people that were around us. Like I said, I have synesthesia, and so my synesthesia, these cross, my sensors are crossed, and so the people I would see moving around me had their own song, and so I would put it to the piano, and my mom would help write lyrics to what I was feeling. And so there wasn't really a genre for that. And so it was just really cool to be able to be in the Maryland and the Eastern Shore area and be able to write songs according to that area, according to, these people.
Mm-hmm.
But moving on to Miriah's.
Yeah, no, that's fine. I touched back to Brittany. Yes. So like Brittany said, her diving into everything with her high school experience affected mine and Sierra's. So my high school experience, I was kind of torn with a lot of stuff. I would like to, I'm looking back at it everything's a blur because I played soccer with I made varsity my freshman year. So it's like I was really into soccer, and I did a travel team as well at some point. And I was really into my studies. I know I aced my biology final exam, and I'm still to this day so proud of that.
Like where Brittany and I are like music and Mariah's math and science.
I'm sports and I'm science and everything that's not music really related. And to this day, I kind of regret the fact that my parents said choose an instrument, and I chose a percussion. I didn't choose any melodic instrument. And so when I want to sit down and play and express my feelings, like Brittany talks about, all I can do is hit a drum. So it's really limiting. But no, I worked, my first job was a Happy Harry's. And it got bought out by Walgreens. So I started off at a drugstore, and I was working at Happy Harry's in the evening. I was also, so it was school, soccer practice, Happy Harry's, go home at 10 o'clock at night, and hopefully get your schoolwork done. Yeah,
Wow.
maybe sing a couple songs with Brittany, go to bed, and start it over again. And it's just, I'm like, how did I survive that?
On the weekends is when we were, so you do all of that during the week, and then on the
weekends is when we pack up and go.
Pack up and go.
So high school was definitely a blur a little bit, but you know, I think that my parents are very smart people, because here we are writing songs together, writing music together, sharing our lives together, sharing our passion for the Lord, and wanting to take it on the road and get to know other people who are either lost or seeking or who have found hope, and get to know their stories at these venues. And so that's, you know, my parents, they took the whole kit and caboodle on the road and said, let's go book some venues and sing some songs every weekend or every other weekend. And so then I'm like, well, I can't go to any high school parties. And they're like, that's fine. So I'd like to think that they knew what they were doing.
They did know what they were doing.
They kept 3 daughters out of trouble.
They did.
And it was very smart of them.
Well,
very wise.
And by meeting all of the different people that we were meeting, especially with me at a really young and impressionable age, you learned from other people. Like you heard their testimonies, and you learned about the mistakes that they made and that they regretted, and they said, you know, just don't do that. And I was like, wow, well, everybody in high school's doing it, so I'm not going to do it. Like, you know,
It was incredible how many people would just open up and be vulnerable with you, just having met you that night.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's because they felt like they never see us again.
Well, related to our music. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Sierra's got it.
Yes.
Yeah.
But also the opportunity of being in like a traveling family band during high school, man, you got brought out of the bubble.
Yeah.
Because high school, superlatives, who's the best.
And on an island.
The clique,
Yeah.
the mean girls.
High school on an island.
Yes, and on a very small island where everybody knows your business.
And if you don't have a driver's license, you can't get off.
You can't get off the island.
The Sierra's experience.
Yeah.
It was very eye-opening because, like I said, you're out of the bubble. You are in the rest of the world. You realize how big the world is. It's so much bigger than yourself. And it's humbling. And I feel like it was one of the best things that could have happened to each of us individually, to see that it is not about you. And I feel like a lot of people miss that nowadays.
Even with their passions, like having a passion that we thoroughly enjoy, it is not about you. Like we're Christians, and we believe that the passions that we're given are for giving back to God. And I mean, that's just what we believe. And so we've always had even more joy in using our gifts, because we just hold to the fact that it's not about us, and watching other people enjoy our gifts for themselves is just so incredible. But going to Sierra now.
So by the time my high school experience came, I'm 6 years younger than Brittany and 4 years younger than Miriah. So what Miriah was saying with the realizing through every weekend or every other weekend, traveling outside of the island and the middle school and high school. By the time I got to high school, I was really over it. I was really, really over all of it. So
over high school.
Oh, I mean, over all of it. It's like over the island, over high school. I was ready to do bigger and better things.
Today's episode is brought to you by Romer Skincare. Based out of Chicago, Romer launched a clean skincare line that covers all your skin needs. They prove that you don't need a million serums, eye creams, and all that other stuff to get better skin. Why we love them. Clean ingredients and effective results with just the simple 3-step routine that you and even your partner can share. I am so excited to have Romer Skincare as our sponsor today because in a couple of episodes we will have Lauren Rome, founder of Romer Skincare, on to share about her story and her passion for creating a clean and simple skincare line. Right now, Romer Skincare is offering our listeners 20% off by using the code PASSIONPOD. That is PASSIONPOD on their website, romerskincare.com. That is ROMERSKINCARE.com. No stress, no clutter, just happy skin. All right, back to our story with Harmony Rhodes.
When I got to high school, I did theater as well. I did tennis and volleyball for the first year, and then I realized I just wanted to do theater the whole time. And I did the musicals and the fall plays, and that was my 10th grade year. By 11th grade, I was like, I'm graduating early. So I decided to graduate a year early from high school. So I graduated literally 3 days after I turned 17. And that same year, I packed my bags and was like, well, what college should I choose? The one across the country. So I was like, while Brittany, when she was finishing her high school senior year, we were just starting. By the time I finished my 11th grade kind of, high school, by the time I finished my high school experience, we were coming to a fork in the road.
We were.
Where all of us had to make decisions on how we would either keep this thing going or go off and do our own other passions. And so that was a time where, and we can dive into it more, but it was a time where we just decided to kind of take a break and pursue other things.
Get married.
Brittany got married.
So this was 2012.
10
was when I got engaged. So
yeah.
We'll restart there. So you were still in high school until 2012. Okay.
Yeah. So 2012 is when I went off to college. Okay. I was the only one to attend a college on campus because Brittany and Miriah both did college online for the sake of the band, for the sake of the ministry, being able to travel and do schoolwork at the same exact time. So I went and I experienced my freshman year on a campus until I changed my mind and I was like, you know what? This is a bubble too. I'm getting out of here.
She got to learn that.
I'm claustrophobic.
While everybody in her high school class was still in high school.
Yeah.
So that was good.
But so we all decided to pursue different things.
We haven't gotten there yet.
And that's where we enter into the second part of our story.
So just to clarify, I guess in Brittany's last year of high school, you all, is that when you started touring then?
Well, when we had our first album come out.
Oh, I guess that was your first album.
And by 2012, our second album came out.
So we had a solid from 2007 to 2012, the beginning of 2012. We had a solid run of just running around.
Every other weekend.
Yeah, and we did different things. We sang for Six Flags America for 4th of July in front of 15,500 people. We sang for...
She keeps that number.
That's our biggest number. But we sang, and we sang with different artists in Six Flags as well. Where did we meet Skillet?
Well, that was
in Ocean City.
Skillet was Ocean City.
Yeah, but what event was that?
Winterfest.
That wasn't Winterfest.
It was their winter festival for Christian music, but I can't remember what it was called.
Yeah, it's like so we just
Angel Fire.
A lot. No. We went to New Orleans after Hurricane Katrina. Did benefit release.
Oh yeah, so that was in 2005. So we were touring a little bit
beforehand.
So Katrina hit, and that was in 2000. I think we went out there in 2006 or 5, and and it was still just a mess down there. And we had done awareness and a fundraiser there for them.
We worked with a lot of nonprofit organizations, and we also teamed up
Tons.
with the university that Brittany and Miriah were both attending. They
sponsored us because when we graduated high school, online campuses was that was becoming a thing. It wasn't a thing in, I think, 2007.
Now 2020 is the thing.
Yeah.
Okay, it wasn't 2000. Yeah, I know. It wasn't a thing in 2005. But when I graduated and I transferred from where I was attending in Maryland, I transferred to Regent University in Virginia Beach. They had just opened up an undergraduate program online. And so they were like, hey, we need help kind of spreading the word. Can we sponsor your band and set up a table while you guys tour? And so we were like, yeah. And so that's where that came up. So we got sponsored for that, and which was great because student loans are awful. And so that was fantastic, a great experience. And we got to carry some cool swag for the university. We all ended up graduating from Regent University too, which was really cool.
Awesome. So you all kind of were together, but just at different stages because you're obviously not the same age. So as you were kind of progressing through, you mentioned that you guys took a brief break, and then what, I guess, if anything happened there that you wanted to highlight, and then you said it was a break, so I assume you got back together. So if you want to just catch us up to there, that'd be great.
Yeah, so this is the break that Brittany, are you talking about 2012?
We're 2012.
Okay, 2012.
Mariah's gonna tackle 2012.
So after
I got married.
Brittany got married in 2011. So you're talking about adding a husband to our tour bus. That's not going to happen.
And our house. They lived downstairs.
He's not as comfortable with our group, right? So we have to respect that space. So Brittany and Brendan kind of started their life. And not too long after they got married, a month, I got engaged.
Wow.
And
to Brendan, my husband's roommate.
To the roommate. So which is great because now to this day, they're like best friends and everybody gets along. But again, we're talking about yet another direction that I'm going into now with my, fiance, soon to be spouse.
Because their careers.
And he was living in Tennessee at the time. And so I was thinking, okay, well, I'm moving to Tennessee, and Brittany's here with Brendan. And so
Sierra's about to go to California.
Sierra's going to California for school. And so that's kind of when we put everything on pause because we're like, okay, there's a lot of life happening right now.
Yeah.
And
well, my dad, his job was at the airport. So he did not work at a hub for American Airlines. And so that position that he had was going to be outsourced as well. And so he had to make a decision. He's like, we have to move so I can keep this, my job. And so he had a bunch of different hubs lined up where he was going to transfer. And so my parents are moving. The house is going up for sale. I'm married. My husband gets a job opportunity in Houston. Mariah's getting married. Sierra's going to California. And so there was nothing that we could have done to keep us together.
No.
Like everything was just, we say that there's a time for parents to experience empty nesting. What happened to my parents was the nest blew up.
Our dog died.
Yeah, the dog died too.
The same year.
And this is like our dog of like 16 years. So she passes away 2 weeks before everything just ends.
She's just like, I'm going to stay here.
And so my parents were just like, oh, like the fact that they are so strong spiritually and just, their relationship with God is so amazing. Their faith, the fact that I think 2012 was the reason why they are strong in their faith and they are who they are. Because I don't know who could have, outside of losing a child, I obviously don't want to compare that kind of grief, but losing, just the proximity of being so close to your children.
Just everything you knew.
Everything you knew.
For 16 years, for however many years of all being together forever.
Just gone
together
in a matter of weeks.
Wow.
And that was our 2012. And it was exciting And it was
because I'm like, I'm getting married. It's very
she's
exciting.
Getting married.
I'm going to college.
And my husband and I just embarked on Texas, and we were like, it's so different than Maryland. You get, you got a lot more bang for your buck, and it was just so much. It was like you could breathe. And Sierra's embracing just being, somebody outside of Beyond the Veil or Harmony Roads. So
because that's all I had known.
She had grown up under our shadow.
Yeah, you went out to Cali. You got out of the shadow of your sisters. You did your own thing. You said,
and so there was a lot of really, really exciting things that my parents did well, even in their pain, supporting us and being happy for us.
Mm-hmm.
They never turned against us, never made us feel bad for leaving them.
Oh, and always supported our decisions.
Always supported
when I was
our decisions, as long as they were in the will,
Yeah, as long as we're following the will of God. So when I was at college, I went to APU, Azusa Pacific, my freshman year. I'm sure we'll touch base on this, like what are our other passions, but I have always been passionate about constitutional history, revolutionary history in general. And I wanted to be a constitutional lawyer for a while. So I was doing a double major in government and American history, and I had checked off. I remember the day I checked off pre-law as my minor, and my dad's like, "You go for it." It's just like, I ended up not doing it, but they were always so supportive.
Thank you so much for joining us each week to listen to our awesome guests as they come and they chat about their story and their passions and how their passions have evolved and grown throughout their story. I am truly, truly honored that you would choose to download and to listen to these conversations every other week and invite me into your earbuds, your iPhones, your Alexas, your Google Homes, wherever you listen. Thank you so much, friend. I am so grateful for you. Could you please do me a favor? If you're not subscribed to the podcast already, would you please do that in whichever podcast player app that you're listening to us on today? If you are already subscribed, you're ahead of the game, and I thank you so much, friend, for doing that. It truly makes a huge difference. Also, I would love it if you could possibly share the show with a friend. I find about so many different shows through recommendations from friends. Maybe some of you have found out about this show through a friend sharing it with you. Lastly, would you please leave a rating or review over on whichever podcast player or app that you're listening to this on? Thank you so, so much. I know these things may seem super small, subscribing, sharing the show, leaving a rating or review, but they truly do make a huge difference in new listeners finding the No Wrong Turns pod. Thank you so much, and thank you for being here, for listening, and for cheering on the No Wrong Turns pod. Thanks for subscribing, sharing, and reviewing the show.
Yeah, and that's really where we took our careers too. So we have this passion in music, we have this passion in performance, and Miriah ends up being a meteorologist.
So to kind of, get back to Audrey's question, we took a pause in our music, and what really kind of happened was we all started to flourish in our other passion, whether that's graphic design, history, or meteorology. It all just exploded.
It did.
When you took us all apart, then we all kind of grew as individuals.
Wow.
And
Miriah got her golden voice, her podcast
her radio voice.
Yeah, her radio voice. Yeah. I got the graphic design, and then Sierra's solid on the facts here when we bring her in, and she just knows, she makes sure that anything that we say on the podcast that is true.
Yes, she's our fact checker, the fact checker. But no, it was a blessing in disguise. The pause really created the space that we needed as individuals to find ourselves outside of a group, which I think is also very healthy. Yes, it's a blessing that we all get along well and we do life together well, but also we have, individual identities. And I think that created space for that.
And we were literally in all different cities and states. Like none of us were together at this time until 2000.
I came back the next year. You and I were in the same state then.
We were in the same state. And then so 2014 we changed our name to Harmony Roads. I had already had my daughter, and so we went from Beyond the Veil to Harmony Roads because we knew that even though we were playing the same song, we were different harmonies.
Yeah, we knew that things had changed, and the name change just signified just the change in us, but
different season for our family, and the evidence that we were all on different roads.
Yeah.
Yet we all have harmony together still, and we still
we share a harmony,
share life. And so that's why we changed our name, and then we had new music come out from that. But
we've been doing dropping singles since then. We dropped another album in 2012, and that was heartbreaking because we dropped it literally weeks before we all parted.
Oh,
and
how bittersweet.
Yeah, there's a couple songs. There's one, Help Me Fly, but Help Me Fly, you could definitely hear in our voices that we were pretty much saying goodbye. And it was just really sweet. It's my dad's favorite song. And so we released that, and it never toured. We were never able to tour with it together because shortly after I had my baby and we started all having babies. And then we worked our way to this year is the first year we're all back in the same city.
Wow. So that was 8 years then apart.
Well, kind of, yes.
We're touch and go. We were touch and go. I mean, Brittany, while she was down in Houston, she worked for the Houston Pregnancy Center. And they had a venue at the House of Blues where they were doing a kind of a fundraiser. And they had allowed us to come and sing a few songs, and that was a wonderful opportunity. And so we had little things here and there with
dropping Christmas singles,
and then just a few different things.
Because really when we were together was around Christmas time, so we jump into the studio. Yeah, the holidays. We jump into the studio real quick, record something and then drop it by Christmas.
Because what happened is I had gone to college in 2012, and then I decided that I wanted even more. So I felt like that was another, like I said, another bubble. I felt constricted and that I wanted to go out and do more. So I decided to move in with my parents again. So they got a daughter back when I was 18. And so I'm starting my sophomore year of college, and I decided to transfer to Regent University's online program. And I worked full-time as well. I went to school full-time, worked full-time. So we are in Dallas, and I worked full-time for it really fell into my lap, the opportunity, but a museum curator for a small nonprofit collection.
At 18 years old.
At 18 years old, I had other people. I wasn't the primary curator, but I was dealing with historical artifacts like George Washington's wallet and all of these different, very expensive items.
Wow, that's crazy at 18 years old.
Is it signs from the Titanic too?
Yeah, so I'm a big Titaniac is what they call them. But just a plethora of different artifacts just from different years, and it was incredible.
So she was in Dallas with my parents,
and so Brittany was in Houston, but so we were only 4 hours apart. So I was able to drive, especially when she only had one child and I didn't have any children or any commitments. I could just go down for a weekend. We could touch base on music and other things like that. And then, if we decided to do something, we just needed to somehow bring Miriah in. So
somehow, some way.
Yeah. She's in Ohio.
I was in Ohio. I was stuck in Ohio. And, but I was in Cincinnati. It was a great city. I loved Cincy. But not only was I proximity very far away, I had a full-time job and was working in television, which is
NBC.
Not helpful for time away because the news never sleeps. It is constantly on.
That's what I hear.
Yes. And so I really could not get away a lot. And especially because I was specifically there for weather, and weather is always on. And so time away and time to get away to Texas was really not easy to find. But on the occasions that I did was when we would get together and record some stuff, which it did happen on occasion. So
and in 2016, January 2016, my husband and I moved to Dallas. So
but to throw a wrench in things, in December 2015, I got married to a military officer, and he took me away.
Wow.
Yeah, so they gained another.
We're missing each other.
Yes,
it's like so close but so far.
Yeah, and so he was amazing. Just the sweetest, most patient man you will ever meet on this planet,
and which I need.
Yes.
But we'll give him some credit there. But God was so wonderful, and when you're a military spouse, he graduated from West Point in 2015 and we got married that same year. But when you're a military spouse, there is no guarantee where you are going to live. And by the grace of God, he ends up in a field in the military that is just, his training is 2.5 hours away from Dallas. So while he's training to become an officer in the military, he's only 2.5 hours away. And then his first post as finally a military officer is also 2.5 hours away the other direction at Fort Hood, Texas.
Yes.
And so when
They
we got
were
married,
always just 2.5 hours away.
Yeah, when we got married,
always.
we moved down there 2.5 hours away at Fort Hood, and then we spent 3 years there. And the last 2 years we spent at Fort Sill, which was where he trained. And we wanted that place, and we got it. You can like put in requests, and so we got it because we knew that he didn't want to make a career out of the military. He just wanted to do his service.
Mm-hmm.
And so we wanted Fort Sill for the close proximity so that he could easily transition when he got out, which is what happened this year.
No.
So,
and then even when he was deployed, Sierra was so close that she was never alone.
Oh,
Never alone.
We let go of our rental and I moved back in with my parents again.
So it was such a blessing.
Because we had her again. Because my husband and I, we moved to Dallas in 2016. Mariah moved to Dallas.
We'll get to my story.
No.
But you moved in 2016.
2016, so I was right down the street from my mom.
Mm-hmm.
And we just thrived. I mean, I became a volleyball coach, so there's that passion again, right?
Yeah.
So I love coaching. I knew that I was going to be a great coach and just a good volleyball player.
Mm-hmm.
And I knew for music that I would be a great performer and just a good music teacher. So like sometimes with your passions, you know that you have different passions and that you'll be good at something, but you'll be great at other things.
Yeah, I think that's so good.
Yeah, and so having my background in volleyball and just my love for people in general, I was able to meet these girls where they were at and teach them great volleyball as a good player. And so that was my first experience in Dallas, and I loved it. Texas sports is a little crazy, but you learn along the way. It's kind of
It's so crazy,
a little much, but we hung in there and we did it. And so that was a strange, random time for another passion of my life that had been just gone for so long.
Dormant, and then when it got some air to breathe,
and it just came, it literally fell in my lap. I thought I had just volunteered to shag balls, which is just to pick up the volleyballs that are being hit by the players. I was like, I'll just do that, if you guys need it. And they were like, no, we need a head coach.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And so Dad, my parents have always told us as performers, like, you're going to fake it till you make it. Like, you get up there and you do it until you do it. Mm-hmm. And they were just really good at instilling confidence. Yeah. So I just showed up.
Right. As long as you say it and do it with confidence, people gotta
follow you.
Yeah.
Friends, I am enjoying hearing how Brittany, Miriah, and Sierra grew in their collective passion together in creating their band Harmony Roads, while at the same time being able to pursue their other passions and branch out to test and see how those passions develop. I love how Miriah explained their thoughts about passions when she said, "We believe that the passions that we're given are for giving back to God." This idea of how God gives and grows passions in each one of us, and then how those same passions and giftings can be used for God's glory. I just want to remind you all that this is a part 1 of 2 with Harmony Roads. Next Tuesday, we'll be dropping part 2 of the interview that will detail the group's collective passion for music and what their band looks like for them as adults, as well as diving into some lessons and areas where they have learned from that they're going to share with us. I hope that you are all encouraged today through Harmony Road's story and passions. My prayer is that you would consider what God has for you and what He might be leading you to. You can see the show notes for our music credits. All right. I hope you guys enjoy your week. If you enjoyed this episode, please share it with a friend. I would truly be honored. And I will see you back here next time for part 2 with Brittany, Miriah, and Sierra of Harmony Roads. Hey friends, you have just listened to part 1 with Harmony Rhodes on the No Wrong Turns pod with Audrey Hickman Hunter. I'm Audrey and I'm your host. And I'm so happy that you guys were here and listening. If you like what you're listening to today, make sure that you subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. We are bringing new shows every other Tuesday, and we always have on some awesome guests to come on and chat about their story and their passions and how their passions have evolved and grown throughout their story. Subscribe today to the No Wrong Turns pod with Audrey Hickman Hunter in your podcast player app so you guys will never miss an episode. See you next time.